Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me comic writer and creator Edward Davis, who is the writer and creator of Immortal Error. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, I am excited because Immortal Error obviously deals with immortality and the concept of death as a person slash entity. And I don't know if I lost you. Ah, good, you're back. It wouldn't be an interview without any technical difficulties. As I was saying, it deals with this entire concept of immortality and sort of how that has challenged, I guess, normalcy with life and a variety of other stuff. And I know a lot of stuff's going on because you just launched the 4th Kickstarter. And I might have sort of tipped my hat a little bit, but I do think the best place to start with everything is what is Immortal Error and what is the basic premise, because I sort of teased part of it.
Yeah, the basic premise is in the year 2000, there was a mysterious event that rendered all of humanity completely immortal. But, something that could be seen as a blessing, everybody wishes to be immortal. Well, it's actually turns out to be a huge curse because people continue to age. They can get sick. You lose a limb, nothing's growing back. One of our main characters is just a decapitated head who was his head was cut off, and now he still continues to live because it's a curse of immortality. Nobody can actually finish the natural life cycle. So we haven't seen yet, but we're going to see what someone looks like who was born in the beginning of this all, and now they'd be over 200 years old, and just what's going to happen. They will never actually die, and the world becomes overpopulated, natural resources dwindle, and the world turns into a complete wreck where you have the haves and the have-nots, but even more divided, where the people that would be the have-nots are forced to live underground. They can't even walk onto the surface and visit a city, or they get immediately hunted down.
Yeah, and I want to table that for 1 second because you set up a really unique world. But where did even this idea for this story come from? Because there are stories of immortality and the quest and the philosopher's stone, if you will, which is sort of thrown into that entire idea of immortality. And I'm not saying this is dealing with the philosopher's stone, because this is dealing with more of death as an entity. It takes sort of, Christopher Moore's approach and A Dirty Job, which is a book about sort of the Grim Reaper to some degree. And so obviously it takes a very different route with the immortality position, but where did you even get the idea for this, and how did all that come out? Because this is sort of turning left when a lot of people turn right when they're talking about immortality.
The basic premise started when I was in college literature class, and we were reading excerpts from Gulliver's Travels. And he goes to a bunch of different islands. Most of the people know he goes to one, he becomes giant. He goes to one, he becomes tiny. But he continues to travel just because he's completely unhappy with his life, and he's searching for better all over the world. And he finds this island where every single person is immortal. And their immortality, he thinks, great, paradise on earth. I'll never die. This is what I want. And then kind of behind the scenes, he discovers all these elderly people who are hundreds upon hundreds of years old, and they're just miserable. They're haggardly. He looks at this and goes, oh my gosh, this is actually terrible. So I remember I was reading that story. I read it in this college lit class, and it just kind of ignited an idea in my head. Like, what if immortality really does suck? Let me tell that story of how immortality is just a terrible thing, not the blessing it would, seemingly be in the beginning. And my book kind of jumps right in where we see right away it's definitely not a blessing, but that whole idea of immortality being terrible, that kind of got me going. Then I was reading the On a Pale Horse stories as well back then, and that's, bringing the actual mythology of the Grim Reaper into it. So I kind of took both ideas and put my own sensibilities into them, and sprinkle in a little bit of the tension that was going on during the millennium, where everybody thought the world was going to end as soon as the year 2000 rolled around. And that's when the story started. I started writing it in about 98 and kind of feeding into all of that hysteria that was going on at the time. So that's kind of where it grew, and now it's just kind of branched all over the place from there.
Yeah, it's evolved in many ways, and we're going to dive into that. And you mentioned something, and there's a reason why I set the table because you set up a very unique, I guess, setting and parameter to play with, where we have this entire circumstance because now everybody's immortal. That there are people who have everything in the world and they live in better conditions. They sort of have this idea of a better lifestyle. They have infinite amount of resources, for lack of a better word. They have the ability to have kids, which, there's a scene in one of the books, whether it's, I think it's the second or third book, where, and not to ruin too much, but it's this entire concept where you need to implement population control because everybody's now living. And if everybody
Yeah.
was procreating, obviously everybody, there wouldn't be enough. Everybody would be immortal, but it would create bigger problems in the long run. And so we
Mhm.
get that entire circumstance, and then we also get this entire dark side of what has to happen with all that and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And we get, I guess, I don't want to say, a class warfare between the rich and the poor. I find it more of a suppression type scenario where we
Yeah.
get people who are fortunate or have connections suppressing an entire underclass of people who don't have that, and those people have to resort into, I guess, a dark world, and the top world is completely oblivious of
Mhm.
the realities of what's going on because
Yeah.
they're on the surface. And so it creates a whole discussion where I think it takes the idea of class and just sort of reimagines it on a whole new level. And it's really interesting what's going on with that. And what was that like setting up that world? Because this is a real division.
Yeah, I think when I was creating that, it was just kind of seeing if the world really did go into chaos, the gap between the haves and the have-nots would grow exponentially. And that's what we see. Like I said, the people that are walking on the surface, they're just impervious to everything. They're going about in their normal lives. They'll hurl their insults at what they know. They know there's people down there, and they'll call them cockroaches and go on with their lives. And they get their kind of blissful, crowded city that they can walk around in, not realizing that down there it's just, it's every person for themselves. They're fighting for every scrap of food, and they're just battling for every little thing. So I thought this is what kind of would be created. The have-nots would be shoved down as far as they could shove them down because they don't want to even worry about them. So basically they continue to put that gap between the systems, and nobody really cares because even the people down there, they're not aching to get to the top. They're just worried about how am I going to live my next day in this underground hellhole that I live in.
And then it goes even further because obviously the underground is sort of winner takes all attitude, survival of the fittest. Where is my next meal coming from? Where is my next position coming from? Where's my next shelter coming from? And it sort of sets up a character called Father who basically has sort of a mission to create, I don't want to say a utopia, but a safe haven in many
Yeah.
ways in the underground, and is sort of fostering and developing and building a village and a safe haven, and is rescuing people who are in the underground and who are probably the good ones. And so, what was that like, even creating that glimmer of hope? And the village is Hope Village, and even creating in the middle of hell almost a moment, not to get biblical, but almost like a heaven moment type thing, and a type of thing where it's like, okay, this is a safe haven, even though everything else is a disaster in this underground world.
Yeah. I mean, with that, I just wanted, excuse me, I wanted to have something where there's some sort of place worth fighting for, because the underground in itself is, just this whole deep system of abandoned subways where it's just terror. You have gangs, you have cannibals, you have every nightmare imaginable, but then you have this place that's actually worth saving, and a character who's gone out of his way to bring hope back into the most hopeless place that exists.
Yeah, and obviously, I think it even goes further. I think it's this idea that Father goes and saves children and saves the people who I view as sort of being, I don't want to say they're helpless, but have potential and need mentorship and need some
Yes.
type of guidance and need an opportunity to thrive. And we see this with Ari and Miguel, and we see this even with Kimberly, and even him saving Dr. Mann, who's that headless character, and saving probably a few others as well that we haven't been introduced to at this point. But that entire position, not just creating a safe haven and then defending that, but also continuously saving people. And you know, Father obviously builds the mechanical, I guess, venture for Dr. Mann, and also sort of re-inspires the hope for Dr. Mann, which then sort of re-inspires and becomes the entire, I guess, driving point of challenging this notion of, okay, how do we stop immortality and reverse it? Because that's kind of where the book goes. And the reason why I wanted to bring up all the setting stuff is because these people in their village, technically, if they just continue the way they're expanding their village, they have a safe haven type life, that the underground isn't so bad, but there's more to it than just this. And there's a mission saying, hey, we have to reverse this immortality, and they're looking for the answers because they realize that after 200 years of being alive, there's no point anymore in life.
And that's
it sounds messed up when I say it, but the whole thing is that, like, if there is no death in life, then you don't really have life. Immortality is only good for so long.
And it'll eventually backfire, because who would want to live your entire existence as a head? I mean, you have nothing, and you just can't. At that point, he wanted nothing more when he went into the underground than to be rid of his life. He wanted to forget about everything, and now he's doomed to keep living just as a head, even if Father reignited hope in him and kind of brought him back to a place where he could help others. But even so, it's just you need that natural life cycle to occur, and stopping it just throws everything off. So they're trying to save a world that doesn't even care about them, just because they know life's not going to be worth living until there's actually a beginning and an end.
And so obviously the entire story sort of then spans out of this, because and I'm trying to not ruin too much, but obviously we get the entire origin story, and just to give an idea here, this may or may not be how sort of it all started to some degree. So obviously we get an entire origin story 200 years ahead of what happened, and how sort of, I mean, I don't think I'm running too much, but somebody killed death, which then granted immortality, because death has a job, and death was an entity slash the Grim Reaper. And the concept, I guess, in this comic book and in this series is that, well, death takes the person's soul, and if you eliminate that entire person or entity or force, then nobody's gonna clean up, you know, the dead. And I'm saying it in a particular way for a reason. Because I think it gets the point across super well. But what was that like, you introducing it? Because I think it's super important sometimes in writing and in stories that we understand that this story isn't about how we kill death. This story is about, okay, how do we solve the problem? And so getting that origin story out really quickly sort of answers, okay, this is the problem, and now we know that we don't need any more to look for why this happened. We need to look for how do we solve the problem.
And that's something I did, and I know some people have been critical, saying you should have taken more time and spun the mystery. But I thought, you know, I wanted to get right to it. It's like, okay, this whole story is a hero's quest. It's about restoring death to the world on a hero's quest, not the finding out. The finding out we get quickly, and that sets up where the series is going to go from there. And that is just, how do we get this back? What can we do to bring death back into the world? We know why it's gone now. How can we actually restore it? So I thought it takes a turn, because the first issue kind of introduces just the gritty world, and we see everything that's in there. And then the second issue brings in the actual reason, like you said, death getting killed, but brings in magic and mysticism. So I thought, I'm going to give my readers the out. If they find that, okay, this twist just doesn't work for me, they know after issue 2 they're not going to feel like I invested all this time and that's it. Oh, I feel like I wasted so much time and energy on this series, so I want to give it to them right away, and then know that it's all about the quest now. It's all about the mission and how they can go about and see. I mean, they're going to eventually see parts of the world that we haven't seen yet, because they have to venture and go to all these different places in order to find the ways to bring death back.
Yeah, and I even think this is super important, because I think that getting to the point of why death isn't here anymore is really important to get there really quickly. Because I'm a movie guy, and in a movie, if you're going to give me a 2-hour movie, I want to know what's going to happen in the first 10 minutes of why we're even going on this. You know, Fast Five is a good example of this. It's pretty clear that they're trying to run away from this and need a bunch of money to run away.
Yeah.
And so now we know there's going to be a major heist, but we don't know how they're going to pull it off. If it took us 45 minutes to figure out they have that problem, it becomes, the movie's now a whole different movie. Because now you don't have another hour and 50 minutes to do the planning, get all the fun stuff, get some like fake turns and twists, and then that entire movie works. And I feel like this comic, in reading it so far, that we get to the point and now we know why, and we don't need to worry about that anymore, except the fact that they now need to unite death somehow, and clearly have enemies out there. And we don't even know the full extent of their enemies per se at this point. Going in, and I've obviously read the first 3 issues, and I think a lot of other people have as well. And I don't even think anybody in the first 3 issues know the full extent. But one of the first enemies, and this kind of sets up some stuff, and I'm going to be ruining some stuff, but not too much. Pretty much, we find out that Dr. Mann has some issues with another scientist slash doctor, and it just so happens that they sort of targeted her. Miguel targeted her, cut off her arm, and they're trying to get citizenships up so that they can go on more quests. And well, you know, now it's sort of on between, I guess, Dr. Mann and Dr. Nix and their pawns per se. And I have a feeling Dr. Nix has some connections to some bigger people and some bigger entities, whether that's people in the city or what started this entire thing, which is kind of the people who wanted to kill death, or the entities that wanted to kill death.
You're right on. You're definitely right, Dr. Nix. There's definitely more than meets the eye with her. I mean, she's kind of the small bad. We've introduced her, and Miguel's had an encounter with her. We saw Dr. Mann's past with her and what kind of wrecked him as a human being for all those years. And issue 3 feeds right into Ari's big encounter with her. So she's one that's definitely connected deeper in the world, because she was given the journal, one of the most important relics to understanding why death actually stopped occurring. She was given the protection of that. So obviously she has connections much higher than we're seeing. We're just seeing her in small encounters. After issue 4, we'll see a stop with her and bring in the bigger bad that we'll see for a little bit more through 5 and 6.
And let's talk about that, because obviously, if Dr. Nix is protecting this journal, that obviously is sort of the key to death and that entire thing. Obviously, Dr. Nix has some information about all this. Obviously, it gets a lot more complicated. I'm sure Dr. Nix has things to answer for beyond what we're seeing, whether we get that background information or not. I think it's a safe assumption that Dr. Nix has people that she has to answer to. And obviously, she now knows, whether she knows it's Dr. Mann going after her or just a group of people going after her, well, that's a whole different thing. It also goes into this idea of how much information is actually being exchanged between the underground and the upper surface. And so there's a lot of stuff that this just opens up beyond just this showdown between 2 women who are highly trained in a variety of skill sets. And this sort of expands the world in a lot of ways, where it also opens it up. And I'm trying to avoid as much spoilers as possible. But
Yeah, you're doing good with that.
it's
You're keeping it vague, which is good.
it's
Yeah.
safe to say that a bunch of stuff is about to go down between these two women, and also it's getting very, very interesting. And then also we get this entire thing where this is a major test for Ari in many ways, and what she's doing, because she has an incident where she couldn't shoot off a strangler or slash eater slash, I guess, cannibal, I think is a safe assumption. That's how I interpreted it at the very least. And she couldn't kill another human being, or shoot another human being, I should say.
Yeah.
Because if you're immortal, you can't die. And now she's going up to the surface to face her biggest test, and this is something she's been training for her entire life, and she has no backup per se in this. So what is that like, getting to write that? Because I don't think I'm spoiling anything too major that has been out on the Kickstarter, where this is like her first big mission, and we get this moment of her going up to the surface for the first time too.
Yeah, she's never been to the surface, and up until then, she's done basic guard duty in her village. And she even talks about in issue 1, you point the gun at them and they scamper off. This was the first person, when she encountered the gang member in issue 1, who didn't just go away. She would normally pull out the gun and off they would go. She was trained enough to take on any foe that would happen to walk in, but she's never had to actually do anything. And that's because this is a different version of gang that's coming in. The eaters, their basic function is find food. Oh, that food's resisting, we're going to run off. They're just cannibals, and they're weak. They're going to look on someone. If they see someone without a gun, they're going to take them on. But if they see someone who's armed, they're going off. But this particular gang member, he's from a gang that they're going to steal all the resources. Their objective is to find a village that has things that they don't have and complete. So he wants to plunder their village, and that's why he's not so easily scared off, because he's not just looking for a quick meal. Okay, this village has all the things we need. I'm going in there because I want to start taking everything I can get. So this is the new gang that would be the roamers, and we're going to see a lot more from them over issues 5 and 6. So issue 4 is really focused in on the confrontation between Ari and Dr. Nix. So that one, I mean, that was basically Ari's first real test with a villain who's not even the gang member who came in. He's not the most intelligent person, and eventually he's gone, where Dr. Nix is going to be calculating and scheming and making sure that she can damage her in as many ways as possible. So Ari's never had to face someone that's a big thinker, not just being brawn.
And then this should give some idea of what Ari's sort of coming up against, where this is one scene where obviously Dr. Nix has a gun ready to be aimed at Ari when Ari shows up. Even though Ari has a weapon, it's pretty clear that Dr. Nix is waiting. And that's one, I think, indication of what people can expect. And I think I don't know if that was in issue 3 per se, because the fight sort of starts in issue 3, and we're going to see where it goes in issue 4. And then there's some other stuff, and then obviously I'm going to drop some spoilers. I think this is another scene that clearly sort of gets at the point of where we're going with this. And then I'm going to drop another one in here, because obviously this should give another idea really quickly of what people can expect, where this is going. And obviously that's what issue 4 is dealing with, is this first mission. And then obviously there's a bunch of other stuff that's going to come out, and who knows exactly where it's going to go, because clearly they, just so everybody's well aware, and it's not really all that much of a secret, they're going to have to travel places to sort of deal with and solve the death component. And they're going to do a lot of stuff on the surface, but that doesn't mean that stuff's not going to happen down below. And so it gets very interesting where everything's about to go with this. And legitimately, this thing can go in 20 different directions very, very efficiently. And it could even be the type of thing, I don't know how far you're writing it, but I know that if I was writing it, I might even go half an issue following Ari and 2 or 3 other people, and then half an issue back home and then get things crossing over at some point, or doing just complete issues, just dealing with the roamers and how that affects back home. And there's a million different ways how this thing can be
Oh
played.
yeah, and that pretty much what you've done is just summarized issue 5. It's where we get our actual split, and the characters aren't all together anymore. And we're going to have a group of people who are going to stay underground, and we're going to see what's going on with them. We're going to see what's going on with the roamers, because basically the one who came in and had to deal with Ari, he was the scout. Well, she did not kill him, so obviously he's alive to say there's good stuff. We want to send more people so we can see what's in this village and it's worth our time. So issue 5, we get the aftermath of what happens in issue 4, the finalizing of that, and then that's where our story kind of takes its fork, and there will be those who are staying underground, there will be those who are up above on the mission to try to unite death. So the story kind of takes its split, and what will happen, because basically what I have planned out is a 30-issue series. And we're going to have full issues that will focus only on what's going on in the underground, only on what's going on the surface, and then those that'll be a 50-50 split. Issue 6 is a big issue with its split right down the middle. We get an equal amount of time on the surface and in the underground, seeing what they're dealing with exactly. And that issue will actually end up being, it's already 28 pages, and by the time it's done, I'm thinking it's going to be more around 32. So it'll be kind of a big supersize issue to wrap up the first story arc, but there's still a lot more to go from there. And then it becomes each mission of each piece they need to find.
And obviously, I don't want to push too far into what we're going to exactly dive into. I sort of have an idea. I know how I would write a good chunk of this if I was working on it. But obviously, what is that like if you're planning 30 issues? Because you're on issue 4 now. Issue 5 is probably written. Issue 6 is either drafted out or also completely written, or storyboarded at the very least. You have a Bible is what I think you have for this entire series. Is a good way to put it. So, but even still, a 30-issue Kickstarter is very, very ambitious. It's risky as well, and people like doing 6-issue miniseries, and that's a big run. Even doing a 4-parter, because the issue becomes that people are going to be interested in this. What happens? Because I don't know how often you run a Kickstarter, but if you're releasing 4 a year, it's going to take a while. Because obviously a 30-issue series with DC and Marvel Image is very different than doing it indie sourced and crowdfunded. And it doesn't have to be, and I think it's going to change, because I think a lot of this stuff is going to get faster and faster and faster. But what is that like for you? Because it does take a lot of operations, logistics. It is risky. It also got to say, hey, where am I going with this? Also got to plan trade paperbacks in there somewhere so people could jump in on, and then that delays certain things. So super interesting. And I love big projects. I'm one of those people that I'm a big anime fan. And when there's a 150 episode series, I love it, because now I know to invest my time in it. I don't want to invest my time in a series and then in legitimately 148 pages we're done. Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. I want 9 issues of Batman. I want 9 volumes, and I want 50 issues, because I want to say, okay, now I know these characters. And so I love the fact that you want to go 30 issues. But even planning all that, and I'm curious, what is that like for you in the entire planning process and figuring it out, and even just keeping your fan base and all the Kickstarter stuff? I know it's a long-winded question.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge, especially when starting on issue 1. Here I have this big, ambitious series planned. Nobody knows who the hell I am. Nobody knows anything about the series. I'm just dropping something brand new in their laps and hoping that it can gain some momentum. So we did the issue 1 Kickstarter, and that's where you start to get your base, but you don't get a lot of faith with issue 1s in indie comics. So many indie comics launch a really amazing issue 1, and that's the last thing you ever see from them. So getting the faith of the readers, getting their trust is definitely a difficult thing. Because I'm saying, you guys, I want you to trust me to work on the next, 30 issues that I'm going to deliver for you, and that I definitely have it planned out. I don't have it fully written out, but really the thing that you plan the big beats. Each story arc has 2 or 3 of those big moments. So those are what basically I know all of the big moments all the way to the end. The end of the book I've already written. So the last 5 pages of the book, I wrote those before I started the first 5, because I thought I want to know the ending and I want to be on a line to get there, because too many long stories, they get comfortable and they just start spinning their wheels, and they think, oh, maybe I don't want to end it that way, maybe I don't want to end it this way. So I figured, I'm locked in, here's my ending. Now I got to go backwards and backwards plan it with the end already put together. So it's tricky. And crowdfunding, I mean, I'm just getting new into that world because this is my campaign, and you kind of learn every time as you go what you could do better. And the first time I just thought, okay, cool, people like buying comic books on Kickstarter, of course they'll buy mine, and not realizing, okay, they don't know who I am. It's not like I made a lot of networking in the indie world. Okay, I had an Instagram with a lot of followers, but most of your followers on your social media they're more superficial. They want to look at your cool artwork. They're not ready to spend money on the actual story.
So let's
So
talk
yeah,
about
it's
this.
a challenge the whole way through.
Let's talk about this, because I don't know exactly when you first launched the first issue exactly, but I think it's safe to say that Kickstarter in the last 3 years has changed dramatically.
Oh yeah.
Crowdfunding has changed dramatically for a variety of reasons. Maybe 4 years, because obviously I think in 2017, now in 2021, 4 years I would give it. There's been a lot more credibility in Kickstarter,
Yeah.
just because the platform's become bigger for comics, and also better projects have come on. Bigger names have come on. I think Keanu Reeves, Scott Snyder, Curse Words did very well. Todd
Yeah.
McFarlane used Kickstarter, even though that's a toy, it's comic related. And
Yeah.
then some other people have done 60, 70, 80,000. Boom
Mm-hmm.
Studios, Power Rangers, they did great
Oh
with
yeah.
it. And then there's people who are in the indie world that are killing it as well. And there's a Kickstarter that's got, I think like 20 days left, and it's done over $100,000.
Wow.
A wrestling graphic novel for
Yeah, I
AEW,
saw that one.
and it looks amazing, and it's actually
Mm-hmm.
a great deal. $45 for a Kickstarter hardcover,
Yeah.
ultra limited book that is going to be a long book, and it's crazy. And then there's all these great rewards with it too, which are
Mm-hmm.
awesome. If you have $2,000 and you want to go to an AEW event and have a blast, I mean, it's a great reward. And
Oh yeah.
actually, if you're a wrestling fan, it's not that expensive, all things considering.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I think, and how has that been? Because you're new to this world, I think is a safe assumption. And
Yeah.
coming into it, and also the constant changes. Because when you're planning a 30-issue series, and Kickstarter in the last 4 years has evolved probably like 10 times. Easy.
Yeah.
And so obviously, and it's good. I think it's amazing. I think Kickstarter's never been better. And Kickstarter earned my
Mm-hmm.
trust back after a bad Kickstarter back in 2017 that was a nightmare that I backed. And now in
Yeah.
the last 2.5 years, they've earned my trust back
Mm-hmm.
because of the credibility. But even still, what has that been like for you? Because legitly a year ago, it was not the same as it is today.
Yeah. And my first one was definitely more of a challenge. That was in 2019. And I did my second one because I honestly, my thought was I'm just going to do shows and I'm going to kind of go that route and not even worry about the crowdfunding, because like you said, in the early days people lost a lot of trust because you got burned by projects left and right, and Kickstarter didn't seem to do much to back up the actual backers. So I think there was that distrust, but people are trusting now because you back a project and most of the projects are giving you what you paid for within the time frame they said they would.
Or
And
they
if
at least
they're not, they're
notify.
communicating with you. They're saying, okay, this happened, and we're still here. So the
I'm behind by a
creators
month.
are keeping.
It's not a big deal anymore. If you tell
Yeah.
me, hey, I'm 3 weeks late because of COVID, I'm not going to get angry because you told me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they
That's the
communicate.
problem, is that if somebody
Mhm.
says, let's say you're a week late and I back your project, nobody's going to be ever angry at you if you say, hey guys, the printer had a delay. I
Yeah.
apologize. It's a week late. I'm getting your
Mhm.
books. I'm sorry. Nobody is going to drop out of that because of that
No.
position. Nobody. Now, if you say, hey, I'm a year and a half late, that's a different discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think
sorry
you
for
have a
interrupting.
cushion. I think you have a cushion of a month or so that people will give you because life happens. Printers can get delayed. Just COVID has made everything a little bit trickier as far as delivering the goods. But yeah, like you said, a year and a half. And I had a few that I backed that were kind of bigger money things that I never saw anything, and the creators just kind of disappeared off the earth. So that doesn't seem to be happening. Communication is good because I've backed some projects that have been delayed even 6 or 7 months, but they're constantly on there. They're giving me a weekly update of what's going on. So I still have my trust in that. If I know I can feel that eventually I'm going to get what I backed, that's all that matters. But for me, I have to establish with my readers that not only are you going to get what you backed, but I'm going to keep the series moving at a reasonable rate. I mean, it's obviously, I'm not Marvel, I'm not DC. I can't give you a book every 30 days. But if I can start getting you an indie book every 90 days, people will feel pretty comfortable in that. And my last Kickstarter ended in December, and now I'm launching this one. And the people backed it pretty quick. So it was funded in a day this time, where my last ones, it took all 29 out of 30 days to finally get them to that funding. So I think as the readers realize, okay, I'm here, I'm not disappearing, I'm going to keep this series moving at a rate that you're not going to have to wait a year between issues, they're going to be happy. Even if it's 30 issues, it's going to be a wait, but at least they know there's always going to be new issues coming every year. And if
And so to even talk about that, because obviously, what is that like for you? Because if you're funded then in a day and you're overfunded, which I should have mentioned before, because that's also a trust factor, I'm more
yeah,
likely to back a Kickstarter that's already funded or is 90% funded than a Kickstarter that is not funded, unless I want to be the first backer. And I get really pissed when I want to be the first backer and I'm not the
yeah,
first backer. I get
mm,
angry about it. And then I
that's
wait till
funny.
99 backers comes, going to be the 100th backer. It's a
Ah,
personal thing. I'm one of those guys. But
mhm,
anyhow, kidding aside, people will back a project when it is fully funded because there is a bigger
yeah,
trust. There's a verification. It's kind of like, hey, my friend said this is really good. If my friend recommends me a book to read, I'm more likely to read it than Barnes and Noble recommending it to me or
yeah,
Amazon recommending it to me, just because I trust my friend more. And I think that's similar with Kickstarter because
yeah,
after the 130 interviews that I've done plus in the last year, if an indie comic creator on every Kickstarter I back, somebody I know who I've interviewed is backing that project.
yeah,
Statistically, at this point, and if they're not backing it, it's either I found something or I'm either completely right or I'm completely wrong, or they just don't
yeah,
know about it yet. But for the most part, with indie creators, somebody I know is backing somebody's project.
yeah,
So what is that like though? And I guess my heart of the question is that when you have that verification now in your first day or your first week even, you're fully
yeah,
funded and you got 21 more days to get across the finish line and you're already there. What is
yeah,
that like? Because this Kickstarter thing is done 200 or 300%, right? At this point.
yeah. It's like
So
310%. But I actually made a different, I had a different mentality going into this one, because in the previous ones, I set the goal at 3,000, which is kind of my bottom line to be able to pay the artist fees and get the printing done. This time I thought, I'd rather set it at 1,000, and that'll at least cover the printing costs, and then we'll see what happens from there. Because like you said, when they see it's funded, people are more likely to do it because they don't want to put their money in there or put their potential money in and then watch the project miss funding by $100 or miss funding by
I'll
$20.
even give you some more insight for me. So I calculate my budget ahead of time. I'm from the school of Dave Ramsey, and I've done very well in investing because of it. And I might not agree with all of his investing, but I calculate my budget. So if I back a Kickstarter, and I just backed that wrestling Kickstarter that we mentioned, that
Yeah,
$45 is calculated as already gone. So this is what my problem is. And maybe people are different than me. And this is actually a really interesting Kickstarter mentality. I don't know if creators think about it like this, where that money is now budgeted as it's gone. So if that project doesn't fund, I didn't lose my money, but that means that I can't go and back another project.
Yeah.
Because I've already calculated X. Now I'll get my money back. I didn't lose anything as monetary, but I lost opportunity. That's the thing as me as a backer. And so that's what I don't know if creators think about it like that, because that, as a backer, that's how I think about it.
Yeah,
and so
that makes sense.
It's very important because I live below my means, and I make sure that I'm not spending more money than I have.
Yeah.
And so I need to calculate those positions. And so that's something that I think, I don't know how many creators think about it from the backer perspective, but when I see something fully funded, I then know this project's happening. And then that affects my budgetary decisions on that front. And so this is something that is psychology, where, because that is how I function. So that's how I view it. So when I see your project is already funded, or if I know a project is going to fund. So I backed Jamie Tyndall's Miss Me Out before it was funded, but I knew the project was going to fund. Because I just knew, and I know his track record, and I know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So because then I can budget accordingly. So that's how I view all this stuff. And I also think it's super important, where I also think lower goals is fun, because what that does is that says, oh, this isn't so far out of reach anymore. And I would imagine that when you were funded, you're like, oh man, the stress probably also dropped tremendously.
Oh my gosh, 1,000,000%. Because I remember the last two, I mean, we were literally down to the last 48 hours before funding occurred. And it's just stress the whole way. Thinking, what more can I do? I'm posting it on a million Facebook groups every day, and I'm, telling every person I know about it. And you're just battling for those last couple pledges that you need. Whereas when you set a different goal, I still need to reach the bottom line to be able to pay for everything. But it's not the stress of, what if I miss this by $200 and you have to start all over again. That stress disappeared, which is certainly a relief, because now I don't look every day, start thinking, oh shoot, what's going to happen? I really need people to pledge on this. I think, all right, the more the better. And hopefully my goal is to just keep grabbing new readers, because I'm hoping that if they read it, they'll enjoy it, and they're in for the full ride.
And then it's even going further off of this, is that I would also imagine, let's say that, God forbid, you need 3,000, but you only got 2,950. If you have to throw $50 of your money outside of Kickstarter into this to get to your bottom line to get this thing done, you can make up that $50 in a variety of other ways. First thing, having to start all over as well. And I know it's not the greatest thing, but if $100 is the biggest issue, and that's the hurdle, and you're 29 and you need 3, and you can't come with $100. I mean, no offense to anybody out there, and I understand $100 is a lot of money, and believe me, I write a budget, I get it, and I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but there's a million ways how you can get $100 in a week in America. Legally, illegally, I got about 300. I'm not going to lie, I know 300 illegal ways how to get $100 in like 2 minutes, but I digress right there. Legally, there's about 100 ways you could do it in a week. It's called driving Uber, by the way. It's like the number one answer. So obviously that must also take off stress, because I would imagine that if you were $100 shy and you were still fully funded, that wouldn't be the biggest hurdle to get this thing fully.
Oh no, I would make it. I mean, really, if it's down to, even if you have a $3,000 goal, I'd say $500 is that kind of magic number that I'll find a way to make up that 500 to get this thing funded. So yeah, that would be it. I mean, if you get higher than that, then yeah, it can become more problematic to, kind of make it appear out of thin air. But if you go, and I mean, when you're selling comic books, I just did a swap meet on Sunday. I mean, it's not the ideal place to sell comic books. People are going for deals, but if you're out there and you're hustling and you're telling your story, you can find a way to get that $100 even at the worst selling situation. So with the creators, if you have a book in hand, you got to go out there and try to make that up and Fortunately, I didn't have to do that in the last two, but there was a point where I was telling my wife, all right, we're gonna have to come up with this money because we gotta fill the hole when it was looking like it wasn't gonna make it there. So we lucked out and managed to get it at the last minute both times. And that's why I said this time, all right, no $3,000 goal. We're setting it at the printing cost and hope that we can get the art fees back on top of it.
So to even talk about that, because one of the things, and I think you're over your 3,000 goal right now,
Yeah.
which is super helpful because it gives even more of a cushion, and cushions are nice. I know about that, and speaking to everybody, the more money you fund, the better off you're going to be. Obviously, stretch goals are always fun as well, and typically with indie creators, I'm a big ClickFunnels guy, and so you either have to be the cheapest, the most expensive, or the most valuable. And so obviously the more money that is raised on all of this, and you're probably going to hit 35 sooner rather than later. Just statistically, you might even hit 4 the way it's going and everything, because obviously you're doing a month long or 28 days. And so typically first week is usually pretty good. And then the last 72 hours is really good as well, where it gets priority, gets traction again, maybe even that last week. And then the middle weeks are the tough weeks.
Those are the slog weeks right there.
That's when you're in a World War I and World War II trench territory.
Oh my gosh, it's brutal, especially when you're really short of the goal. Because I think my last campaign, I think in the middle I was at about halfway, and you're getting like $3-4 a day. Like, okay, a couple people bought a digital copy for $2,
and your question and the question. How far can I push this now, and how do I push it? Because you've exhausted everything you have in the first week as far as things that are going on, and there's only so much media that's out there that you can do, and there's only so much free media that's out there, let alone Facebook ads. And Facebook ads sometimes work and sometimes they don't work, and they probably don't work as much as they work, probably less than they do work in many regards. And so, it's crazy. And so obviously, and this is being fully funded though, now when you're in those week 2s and weeks 3s, there's verification that then pushes it. And so obviously that gets a hell of a lot better, because now you don't have to worry, and now you can actually do real media work, and you could actually say, okay, now my goal is to get another $800 versus saying, to get to 4,100 versus saying, hey, we got to get this thing funded, and we need to get $600 so that when we get into the last 72 hours, we actually have a shot. Versus saying, hey, now in the last 72 hours, let's see if we get 1,000 for the sake of getting $1,000 more dollars. Versus saying, fun, and it changes the way you do things very much in media. So obviously, I'm curious how you even think like Kickstarter has evolved in the last year off of this, because it has changed a lot.
I think now it's really it's a trusted format, and I think it's a place where indie creators are kind of thriving on there, especially with shows, all the cons and all the shows shut down through the COVID time. You used to go, because I used to always go to Comic Cons, and I would explore the independent press area and the artist alley, and I'm looking for some cool new stuff to read. Well, there's no way to do that anymore. So I think people are going to Kickstarter looking for the cool new stuff to read, especially because Marvel and DC just seem to be doing the same, let's do the same events over and over again, and let's restart the universe, the millionth time. And people are kind of tired of that. So I think they're looking for good new material, and they're going on Kickstarter, and they're going on different indie groups to find what good stories are out there. So I think that's this is kind of the way you get your independent work now. You can't go to a con and explore and talk to the creators, but if you go to Kickstarter, 9 times out of 10, if you email the creator, they're going to email you right back, and they're going to converse with you the same way it would be in the real world if you were going to the cons.
So let's even go further into that, because obviously COVID has fucked up everything. I think it's a pretty safe position to state that. And both cons happened last year from March Emerald City was the last con that happened. Maybe there was 10 cons that happened all of last year. And I'm not even talking about just the U.S. I know people in Australia. I know people in the U.K. And nothing's happened. You know,
Yeah, they were all shut.
cities in Australia were legitimately placed on lockdown from doing anything. It's bad. San Diego dropped, New York Comic Con dropped, and now we don't have San Diego this year. We don't have WonderCon this year. All these cons are going to be saying they're operating in, you know, August. We're going to wait to see, because I got a feeling we're about to have August, September, November, October surprises, and December surprises. Nobody knows exactly how long this COVID shot's going to last, if it's going to be a regular thing, or if it's going to be, you know, one and done, or you're going to need a booster every 2 years. We don't know. Hate to say it, you know, and this isn't me being anti-vaccination. This is me just stating what is out there. And not to mention that we don't know what the state of the economy is. The dust is legitimately still settling. With all of that as well. And so obviously, how do you think that's going to impact all of everything with going to cons and creators selling and comics being out there? And right now people have money per se because of the stimulus check, but you know, at a certain point, you know, the piper's got to be paid.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I think there's still a lot of people afraid to walk out their doors. So they're not going to walk into a big crowded con. But I've also
I'm not scared. I'm just not going. I don't want to be around 20,000 people.
Yeah, I think there's people that they don't want that. So they're not going to want to do that again. They're done being sandwiched in with 20,000 bodies. But I think the smaller cons are the ones that are going to kind of be boosted, because basically last year I think I got in 4 cons before the shutdown, and then I've done some little ones like these outdoor swap meet style cons. Those ones seem to be thriving because the people come to those and they want to spend money. So people were eager to spend in a way I've never seen at a con like that before. So those are where I think you're gonna be able to go, but those are more localized. You're not gonna travel to a different state to do a little swap meet kind of con. But the big ones, who knows when they'll be back.
I used to live in DC, and there's just something up in Annandale in DC that I used to go to that was there every either month or every 6 weeks. And I used to drop like $200 on comics every time I would go there, and I would get what I wanted. It was great. I got a bunch of good stuff, and people were very friendly. People wanted to sell stuff. People wanted to make deals on stuff. People were happy to be there, and you know, it was pretty reasonably good deals. So like, I got maybe $250 worth of comics for like $190 of what I wanted. I was super happy to get it, and everyone was super nice, and they were like throwing free books that were like $10 into the deal just because it was all cool. And my only concern was somebody to be able to take my credit card, and that was like the least of my worries, just because I don't carry much cash around. So don't rob me, anybody, because you're just going to get my credit card. I will legitimately cancel it. Anyhow, I digress right there. So what do you even think the future of all this stuff is going? Because nobody indie was necessarily at the cons that I've gone to, and almost those swap meet, almost miniature like comic meetups. But I definitely think that things that are smaller are going to be more relevant. I think that people don't want to be around 20,000 people because con credit is a real thing. And I used to do a bunch of anime cons, and I'm a panelist, so I come at it from a very different angle. And if I can only speak to 50 people in a room, that defeats my entire marketing strategy. Like, I'm trying to speak to 300, 500 people in a room and pack them all in, because I want them all to check out my website, my podcast, my Facebook page. And if I can only speak to 50, it defeats my marketing strategy, and I'm not coming, because for legitimately $10, I could reach 40 people to like my Facebook page, which versus legitimately hopping into an Uber and spending $30 to go to and from the con. Like, and so that for me, like, I don't know where the future is as far as panels go, but I'm curious where they go for vendors and artists and all those people, because obviously you're in the industry and in this section.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a different world with that, because I think the indie creators are going to start going to these smaller things, because right now I have the monopoly. They think they're, a lot of the indie creators think they're above that. I'm above nothing. It's like if I have a place I can sell my book, I'm going to go there, because I'm trying to spread the word and get people to start reading it and hook them. And I think people will start doing those ones, because like you said, you're going to go to the big show, and if they're doing it, because I know that LA Comic Con had this whole plan where they were going to do these 2 different shifts in a day, and it was going to be really small numbers. And then here they're telling us we're going to have reduced numbers and reduced people inside, but here you still got to pay $600 for your booth. And that's a lot of money to make up when you're selling to a fourth of the crowd that should be there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not above going to a small con and having 50 people and speaking at a panel. I just want to know what it's going to be like, per se. And I also want the con to show me a little respect and that's the other thing too that I think is going to be interesting, where I think it's kind of like, if you're selling to a fourth of it, I understand the con needs to make money. They need to pay their bills. But if you're going to charge me the exact same price for a table, or you're not even going to give me a little bit of a shout out or make it so that it's a little more valuable, like mention me in the freaking program. If I'm going to speak, you don't even have to give me a bio. Just say, hey, presenters are A, and give all of us as presenters a page, because that means something to me.
Yeah.
And I think this is the problem, is that it's just, if you're going to charge the same price, or you're not going to actually acknowledge who's showing up to help you out when the audience isn't there. That's where I stand on the issue, is that, and look, I'm not against speaking in front. I legitimately had a panel where there was one person in the room, and it was one of my last panels that I ever did, and it wasn't the con's fault, and the con felt bad. I wasn't angry at the con, but I was also like, WTF, I shouldn't have been booked on that panel.
Yeah.
That was just a failure, and it definitely was not good. But I had more people watching online in that entire thing, because I stream everything. But I think it's just one of those things where, like, I think the online presence is going to be bigger than ever.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's gonna start shifting, because the first few that they've done have been more disasters, where they're trying to show footage and they end up blocking their own footage. So the cons need to get everything together and know how to run an online version of it, because I know creator friends that were doing the virtual WonderCon, and they do fan art, and that's all they would have been in the artist alley, and they blocked all their stuff, like, oh well, this is copyrighted, you can't show a Wonder Woman art print. So even though they were supposed to be featured, they blocked all their art, because it was, oh, that's copyrighted material. But that's what you see all over a con, is someone's take on Wonder Woman and Batman, and that's artist alley, and they're just telling them you can't display it online. So they need to figure out ways to make that work, so the artist can still showcase their work and not have to worry about, okay, I did a beautiful Wonder Woman piece, they won't even show it now.
And I think it even goes further. I think you also need interesting content. I mean, what I speak at cons is, I talk about, the Godfather of anime. I talk about comic book investing 101. I talk about, the 3 pillars of sports anime. I got an entire, Pokemon and government panel that I'm building, and the comparisons, and talking about the United States government and how it relates to Pokemon. And I think you need interesting concepts at cons, and especially online. And I think these cons are not there yet, and I don't think they're tapping into it. And I think that until they do that, they're going to have bigger problems. And then I get, and I haven't told this story, but I was invited to speak at Crunchyroll Expo. And what happened is that they sent me a contract that basically says they own the video and they own what's inside the video.
Oh.
So they own my PowerPoint.
No way.
And I'm like, wait a second, you're not paying me. You own this for indefinitely on however you want to run it. And now this contract was absolutely, one-sided, and it was a ridiculous contract. And I said, some poor kid is going to sign this, And at some point, Crunchyroll or AT&T, which owned Crunchyroll at that point, is going to come hammering down on them at some point, because they're going to put it up on Crunchyroll and they're going to create Anime University because if they do this thing online 10 times, they can legitimately find the best 30 panels that are filmed recorded and best, and then create an entire course out of it, and they own it. That's exactly what I would do. That is exactly what I would do, and I was smart enough not to sign it, and I didn't present it. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a problem with all these artists, is that what do these cons exactly own, and what do you own? Do they own? I don't know if you could technically own their fan art, but do you own the right to reproduce that art in a print as a con? It's a good question. It's an amazing question. And you know what? If you sign up for one of these things, you better read the fine print, everybody. That's all I'm going to say.
That's good to know. I've never done any kind of panel stuff, but now I know. Keep your eye out, because they're not looking out for your best interest.
I protect my interests better than everybody else can, for a reason. I've been presenting at panels for like 12 years. Okay. I've been podcasting for 7. My father's a lawyer. I was going to become a lawyer, and then I decided that it was not for me. Took a bunch of pre-law classes, but that's my concern with these virtual cons. Super, super interesting position where and that's my biggest concern with that, because nobody's getting my content for free.
No way.
But I digress, because obviously that's a very controversial topic, and I can go on for the next 3 hours just on that. But I definitely want to talk about your Kickstarter, and obviously Issue 4 has got a bunch of cool stuff coming with it, because obviously I want people to back it. It is fully funded, and so I know that you can get a bunch of the digital stuff right off the bat. So you get digital Issue 4, you get the first digital issue, you get the catch-up digital stuff. And so what is that like for you to do digital? Because there's been a big debate with indie comics, and a bunch of my friends in the indie comic world said they don't prioritize digital. And I sort of called out a bunch of them, and this was maybe about a year ago. And I think that left a boatload of money on the table.
Oh, yeah.
Of it. And I think that digital should be prioritized, not necessarily first, but it should be an equal footing. So what is that like for you to offer digital? Because for me, digital is cheaper. It's also less of a commitment, and also it's easily deliverable. And look, I like reading on my iPad. I love my iPad. I read a lot on my iPad. I've had a lot of books on my iPad. I have a Comixology subscription. So what is that like for you to deliver digital? Or conversely, some people say, hey, I want a physical copy, but I don't want to open the physical copy because I'm a comic collector and I want to read it digitally too. That's the other thing about digital comics right now.
Yeah, I try to hit whatever market you're going to be in my hand. I want to hold a physical copy of it, but I understand there's a whole world of people that don't want to have to store, 20 long boxes in their garage with all their new acquisitions. They want a hard drive that they can have their entire collection on and fit it in a drawer. So the digital market wants. I also know that people really like alternate covers and things like that. So we had to create a secondary cover that would be printed in shorter supply. We also created
we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. So let's obviously this is issue 1 of the first issue for those, and that can be picked up, and I think that can be picked up both physically as well as digitally.
Both ways,
I believe this is issue 4.
That's
cover.
Issue 4, yeah.
And so this is issues 4, and then obviously this is, I guess, 1 through 4. Yeah. And so you can get a complete set physical, you can get the set digital. And so that's something that's cool right there. And then you can also, this is what is, I guess, the short print
The short print covers, yeah.
I don't know I don't know which one. I think one of them is 1. I think
the first one is 1, the second is 3, and the third is 4. Issue 2, the short prints are all gone.
And so obviously I was going to ask about this because I never heard of it being described as a short print. I've always heard about it being an alternative cover, but it's what is known as a variant, correct?
Yeah.
So obviously, what is the limitation number on that? Because I'm a guy who loves exclusivity. I'm a big
Yeah.
Zenoscope fan. I buy and sell Zenoscope, and they have 250 print runs. They have 125 print runs. They have
Yeah.
150 print runs, and I make good money on that stuff. And I also like having it in my possession. So, what is
Yeah.
that like for you? And what is the limitation with all of these books? Because they are more exclusive.
Yeah, I did these ones. I did 25 of each cover. So I wanted to make them a really small print run. I think it started in the beginning because I had no market, I had no audience. So I did something really small because I didn't know if anyone would actually want it. Because when I did the first issue, I had this whole big ambitious plan where I was going to send it to the artist in Brazil, the colorist in Italy, and get it signed by the whole art team. I didn't realize what international postage was going to run me. So that was 25 copies, and I told each one of them to keep one for themselves. So really only 23 in circulation, but we're down to 2 of those. So people do like those. And then for the other ones, yeah, I stick with 25. And if the market grows, I might move it up to 50. If I see, okay, 25, I sell out during the Kickstarter, then I'll take it up to 50. But I want to keep the numbers on those super low so that people feel like they're getting something that, isn't mass marketed. And I'm a collector, so I tell people, don't worry, I'm not going to reproduce this particular cover. When it's gone, it's gone. I won't even print one, a second run or anything, because then it's like, okay, well, yeah, this is the third printing of your 25, and it kind of dilutes its value and dilutes how special it is to people.
So let me ask you a question because I'm curious because I know that you do posters as well.
Mhm.
Would these covers appear on a poster, or are they completely just on the comic at some point? Because a
They'll be
poster is a
on.
little
I'll
bit
do
different.
I'll do posters and stickers of those covers. I won't do another comic with it, but yeah, as far as promotional art, I'll do the different posters and things like that. So each cover gets its own poster as well.
Because I know that some people like posters, and some people say, "Hey,
Yeah.
I just want the cool poster of this art." Or
Hmm.
even like what I know sometimes happens, and Sanoscope does this, where they have a limited thing with a certain book, but then they'll do a medal of it, and they
Yeah.
go that route, which is not the same as diluting it, in my opinion, because it's a whole different book now because
Yeah.
it's now in a
That's
medal
different.
versus
And I'm
saying,
doing the I'm
yeah.
doing the Virgin covers because I know people like the Virgin sketch stuff. So I'm doing the Virgin sketch, which will be the fully uncolored version. So yeah, there you'll get the same images from those covers, but you won't get it'll be something different, and it's not just okay, you're just reprinting it and trying to go back on your word. So it's something that looks entirely different and will display completely different in your collection.
And so this is just a whole different set versus
Yeah.
that 25. So let's say that you like, and I'm going to go back to this in 1 second. Let's say that you like that fourth cover, which is that purple, really cool one with the swords. And obviously we kind of get that mecha unit in it. And then you like that cover. That's one of 25 is out there.
Mhm.
And then you could get that same cover in black and white without color. And that's a whole different set, but that also
Yeah.
is limited.
Yeah, 25 for that one as well.
And so that's out there. And so obviously you could get that, and those are really exclusive. You could just get a regular set of 1 through 4, and that's out there. Let's say that hey, you like the series, and that maybe you jumped in on the second Kickstarter that you ran, and now you just want a whole set of this because you're like, hey, this is a cool idea, and I like where it's going. And I missed the first Kickstarter, so that's cool that you could throw
Mhm.
out there. And I'm because obviously your Kickstarter states that there's a whole thing between first prints, and I think you get a full 1 through 4 of the regular covers in a first print for a certain
Yeah.
price. But then you could do an add-on, but that would be the second prints of
Yeah.
everything minus 4 because 4 hasn't
Mhm.
been printed yet. In which there's no
Yeah.
second print of 4 yet.
Yeah, 2 and 3 will end up being second prints. I have about 30 of each left. So once I sell 30 of the sets, I'm gonna close out that goal, and then it'll be another one that'll put up there that'll be second prints of them. But for now, I still have enough first prints to fulfill what I've sold. So once that sells out, then it'll be moving on to second prints of pretty much everything. So I'd guess by the next Kickstarter, it'll be a lot more second prints than first prints that are left.
And so even just to explain that a little bit, 'cause this is my field. I'm a comic book investor. I'm teaching a class on it. I have an entire podcast about it, when I can. And so obviously print runs matter. So a first print typically in a barcode is 1 in the last column. A second print is a 2. And depending on the book, a first print is obviously more desirable. I'll give a really quick example. Ultimate Fallout 4's first print is a $300 plus price difference between its second print. A second print of Ultimate Fallout 4 in a 9.8 is a $50 to $100 book on a good day, of the same cover. Not the variant. The variant's a little bit different. A first print could be a $400 to $800 plus in a 9.8. Sometimes it could be a $1,500 book. Maybe or maybe I have 2 Ultimate Fallout 4s that are first print of the regular cover. I may or may not have that. It may or may not be at CGC right now. That I will let everybody take a gander at. But that's really quickly of what first prints are. So I'll give just further insight, and I'm going to just throw this out there, is that I don't know where this property is going, but God forbid it becomes a movie, or God bless it becomes a movie, I should say. A first print might be worth a lot more than a second print.
Oh, absolutely.
Most likely. Even a second print, though, because if that goes down and you're doing 30 issues, you're going to have third prints at some point as well. No question about it. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Maybe you won't even have a third print. You'll just go straight to a graphic novel. But if you get to the point of having a third print, obviously the second print might be worth more than the third print will. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that, you know, and I'm going to probably wind up talking about this, and I sort of was hinting at this weekend on somebody's whole con. And he's great, and I was sort of speaking a little bit about this concept, and I need to speak about it a lot more, about indie comics and investing in indie comics, because there is going to be a market for it sooner rather than later. But I digress right there. So that's kind of the first print, second print entire situation. And then obviously there's all these other add-ons, because there's posters. I think that you have some original art that might still be available. If not,
the art. I sold all the first pages that I put up, but I have a few more that I'm going to do. I also need to add more of the CGC stuff. So I had some graded ones, and one person came and bought up all my CGC stuff.
So that's what it looks like CGC wise.
Yeah, and those are all. That's the best. The issue 1 was a bit rough from the printer, and I had the hardest time pulling high grades on that one. So that's my last graded number 1. We have one more number 1 that we're going to send to CGC, but that'll be for my private collection. So as far as issue 1 first prints, that guy got my last one.
I'll explain CGC. So obviously this is also my wheelhouse, because I buy and sell CGC comics. That's when I was researching, I was very excited about this topic. So obviously what you're sending out in that entire circumstance, is that going to be signed or blue label? Because there's a difference between the two. And
they're all signed label. They're all going to be the certified signatures.
And so that's something that, and obviously you're going to sign it, and obviously, and I'm going to ask this because you have some of those 25 short print runs. If somebody shot you a message, because I know, and I don't know if you've done another interview, would you send one of those out to CGC?
I've sent out 2 of each one of the short prints, and they generally sell in seconds. Like I have a person through Instagram who says, okay, if you send it out, I'm going to buy it. I mean, the price tag's higher on those, but I will send out, I'll hand number all of them, and I'll send out the hand numbered 1 and 2. Then number 3 will be for my private collection. So 3 will always exist in my house, but I'll sell the 1 and 2, and 1's going to cost a lot more than 2, obviously. So you want 1 of 25, it's going to cost almost double what 2 of 25 would.
And I want to ask that question because obviously somebody is going to want that. Somebody's interested in that. Obviously, if somebody, through something, obviously if they say, hey, I want this, and you'll put it right up, and that if it's not a tier or if it's not an add-on, if somebody shoots you something and it's unique, and it's doable, I think you would do it at this point.
Yeah.
So I want to make that clear.
I will grade anything. I will end up grading 2 copies of the Virgin covers as well. And then I always grade 2 copies of the regular variants. And then probably I think issue 1, I've had 17 of them graded. Issue 2, we've graded 12. And issue 3, I've only sent out 1 run for grading. And that's 5 of them graded, because you can go to the CGC site, you put in Finish Line Comics, and you can actually find the entire print runs of everything I've sent out. So you can see that everything's been certified signature, because I mean, if I can sign it and get it with that label, I'll always just get it signed and do it that way.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so has both of those versions of number 4 sold out yet, or are they, because let me ask a question. If somebody wanted number 4 or number 7 or number 25, would you consider doing more CGC stuff, or is it just 2 and done?
I would. I mean, I could do it, and I could tell them, like, okay, I can do this for CGC for you, and you're just like, if you want your book and you don't want me to send it to you, you want me to send it to CGC first, I could do that. And I would tell them, you're just going to add on this much, and we're going to hope the grade comes out good. So there's no guarantees, because the printer, they're pretty rough with some of the stuff you get. And I've got books folded in half straight from them. So you hope that when you buy your short print sets that they come clean. But everything I've sent in from the short prints has always pulled a 9/8. So I've pulled nothing but 9/8. And I have one guy on Instagram, he pretty much is already claiming one of them. So he said, when it sends in, I want one. And then I did a signing at a comic book shop, and there was a guy who came up and bought every graded copy on my table. I had 17 graded. He's like, I'll take them all. So, I mean, he's speculating that this is going to be something big. And I'm like, hey, if you strike it rich, so will I. So I'll be perfectly happy for you.
That's crazy. And so obviously things are going that way. And then obviously, clearly there might be more CGC stuff out there for add-on at some point.
I'm going to always have add-ons for that, but of course I don't have issue 4 in hand yet, so there can't be anything graded with it. But when the issue 5 Kickstarter gets up, I'll have the issue 4 graded stuff, as well as pages from well, right now we have pages from issue 4 because I had the artist send them out in a faster mailing service, so I'd have them for the Kickstarter. I was ready. I was going to launch it launch it February 1st, but I wanted to wait for the pages to be in hand so I could offer those up, because I have a few people that really like the pages, and like you said, some people want the posters. CGC stuff always seems to do pretty well. So I try to get a variety, so it's not just, okay, digital copies and physical copies, and that's what your options are. I like to make it to where, okay, I want to meet the sensibility of whatever collectors are out there.
No, and people are really big on indie. People love indie comics. Obviously, pulling books is an art. I know all about that as a buyer and seller. I just sold a bunch of stuff, and I'm selling a lot of stuff right now, and I'm doing all right with it. And so, obviously, pulling books is an art in its own right. So obviously, it's very cool. And as I stated, at some point, I'm going to be talking about indie comics and speculation and all that stuff, but obviously people like it. People want cool stuff, and people are willing to take that gamble, because if you buy the right book, everybody, and it's graded and it's a 9.8, you never know what's going to hit, when it's going to hit, and how it's going to hit. And so it's super interesting. So obviously there's a bunch of other rewards as well out there. There's t-shirts, hats, some other cool stuff. Obviously I think you get some posters. A lot of cool stuff. So obviously there's something for everybody in this entire run. And then on top of that, there's also a whole stretch goal stuff going on. So obviously there's a digital bundle comics, which a lot of people are doing now. So obviously when you back the project, you get a bunch of digital comics that are not yours, which are cool.
Yeah.
And so obviously you get a bunch of first issues or a third issue or a one shot by a bunch of cool creators. And so it's cool because maybe you find another book that you want. It helps everybody involved, and it's cool
Yeah.
for the reader. It's just digital, and so I like that stuff, and so that's cool. Obviously, Magnet of issue 4, which is cool. The short print Magnet, which is promotional stuff. So if you can't afford the short print, but obviously I think that's unlocked, so that's cool in that realm where you can.
We've unlocked everything but the last one, which is the character sketch pins. And as it grows up, as it goes, like next campaign, we'll do the next main character. So this one will be the Ari pin, and it's from the original sketch that the artist did when we were going and trying to design the characters. So I have all of the main characters. So we'll do one new pin for each one, and I'll do a small enough run on those to keep them collectible because there's a whole market of pin collectors. So I want to make all of them happy, because if you oversaturate any market, people don't want to buy it. The only market that's going to be oversaturated is stickers. I print those by the thousands because people come to my booth. It's like, all right, you want to talk to me? Here, take a sticker. That way you won't forget me tomorrow.
I do the same thing where I have buttons / pins that are dirt cheap to produce, and legitimately hand them out at my panel. And so I've handed out 250 buttons because people will throw out my business card. They will not throw out my button.
Yeah.
And they'll check out what I'm doing because they're like, oh man, this is really cool, free swag, right? And so it's super cool. And stickers are just fun to have, and people like doing cool stuff with stickers. And if it's a cool sticker, it's awesome. And I know that you have a sticker of issue 4, obviously the magnet of the short print run. I don't know if you're ever going to have a sticker of the short print run as well.
Yeah, that got unlocked as well. So we'll definitely be doing that. And yeah, pretty much, like I said, everything up to the 3,000 point has been unlocked. So that's the sticker of the regular print, the sticker of the short print, and then the magnet of the 2, and then the digital bundle. So that's what we have right now. Then I also had one for people if they missed the other 2 Kickstarters, where they could get all the stretch goals in a little bundle as an add-on. So I've had a few people pick those up too, because we did the same character sketches that we're going to do the pin from, but we did them as little iron-ons. So kind of cool. When everybody has to wear a COVID mask, you can make a little iron-on from Immortal Era. So something fun, and figure people, if they want them, they'll get them. I just want to make it to where you have more options than you ever need instead of less.
Usually that's good if it's done the right way, where people want options and people want choice on what they want to buy. I sell a lot of different comics for a reason, because people want choice. But I also know that choice sometimes is bad as well, where I give the right amount of choice. And I think having 90 variants is not a good thing.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that.
It's pretty sick. I know people who have done that, and while it's cool, even having I backed the Kickstarter that had like 25 variants, and it's probably about maybe like 18 too many. But I digress there. But I don't think that with add-ons and even with backer kit, giving a lot of choices necessarily is not bad. It's just a matter of what you're giving choices on.
Yeah.
And on that note, obviously, we've been talking for almost an hour and a half here, and I do want to give you an opportunity, because we covered COVID, Kickstarter, talking a lot about this book, talking about a lot of inside baseball, about a bunch of stuff. And obviously, this story is going in a particular direction. You got at least 30 issues planned out. You got the ending planned out. But obviously, we have to get there first with funding and further funding, issue 4, I should say. So where can people, find the Kickstarter? Where can people find you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, obviously Finish Line, comics, obviously all of that stuff? And where can people go and support you? Back the Kickstarter, obviously everybody, I'm encouraging that. But even going beyond that, because backing a Kickstarter is great, but obviously you want people to follow you on social media, sign up for an email list if you got it, that type of stuff. That's super helpful as well in the longer term, I should say.
Oh yeah. So the social media is all under Finish Line Comics. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, under Finish Line Comics. And right now we're the only one, so it makes it easy. If you put in Finish Line Comics, you'll find us quickly and easily. Instagram, I focus on, you'll see, you know, sneak peeks at the artwork and things like that. On my Facebook, it's more talking about upcoming appearances and smaller things like that. And Twitter, I just try to keep my Twitter moving somewhat. It's definitely my weakest link of the three. But if there's also the finishlinecomics.com where you can sign up for the newsletter, and it'll also keep you up to news with when new Kickstarters are launching and stuff like that. So if you follow the newsletter, I'll send out sneak peeks of artwork that I don't send anywhere else. So the people in the newsletter will get to see it before Instagram, before Facebook. So that's kind of my exclusive way to give them cool things. And then we had an art contest over the summer, so I'll always announce that first on the mailing list so they have a heads up and have their chance to do it, because we did it over the summer and the grand prize was a 9/6 graded copy of issue 1. So I tried to make it a cool, worthwhile prize. And then the winner of it, one of the pieces of artwork that are in there is actually his. So whoever the winner is, they'll get to be a poster on one of the Kickstarter campaigns, and they'll get money for each one that sells too. So they'll get the prize and they'll get some money. So things like that are what you'll find out about on the mailing list. So if you sign up for that, I don't spam you, because I know I delete so many things that come into my inbox from creators, because they're sending me 5 of them in a month, and that's more than I want to read. So 1 a month, that's my promise to you. I won't flood your inbox, but you'll get the inside scoop, and you'll know before anybody else. And then the campaign under Immortal Era, it's under Immortal Era 1, 2, 3, and 4, because I want to make it feel like whether you're new or old, we have what you need.
Yeah, and I've been saying this, and obviously everybody should go check that out. Obviously, take a look at it, see if it suits you. If you like where it's going, obviously you could take, I think, a $2 risk for just issue 1. And then if you like it, I'm sure that you're going to print a bunch of other issues for when 5 comes out. But just note that, you know, you may not be able to get a first print run. Obviously, at some point, this is going to wind up in a trade paperback or a hardcover. I'm not sure which one you're going to go at that point, but or maybe
a little of both, actually.
There you go. And then eventually you're going to do an omnibus. You have to. It's just the way.
Oh yeah.
Go. All 30 of them in one book. It's going to be. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's the overall plan, is to eventually you can take 1 volume and read the whole thing in one big fat phone book size version.
With like a cover that's just immaculate, because that's what gets everybody, right? Just immaculate, all glossed, all nice cover, no expense spared. But we're getting nice for them. But what I've been saying, going beyond that, and I am reminding people that, hey, you know, there are only 30 sets left of the entire first print. So keep that in mind, that if you like what you see, you know, it's okay not to, you know, go all in. I completely get it. Obviously, money's tight, but the best way how to support creators right now is backing Kickstarters, checking out what they're doing, whether it's a digital, you know, just catch up, or you're going all in on a physical copy of one book, or you're going all in on something cool like a virgin cover or something. And look, if you don't see something that you like in there, definitely just shoot, you know, Ed a message, and I'm sure that he could either figure out how to add it as a reward or backer kit or something like that. It's nothing's really all that impossible. If you want a CGC book of that virgin cover, I'm sure that can be worked out of number 4, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not to put you on the spot, but I'm sure it could be worked out. It's not an impossible thing. Or if you want a particular page in the book or something and you like it, I'm sure that also can be worked out, whether that's through Kickstarter or elsewhere. I'm sure everything can be worked out in some capacity. So obviously that's something, and that's a really good way how to support artists. But again, if money is tight, and I've been saying this over and over again, look, please make sure you're good, you're healthy, make sure your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband is good, your partner's good. If you got kids, make sure they're good. You know, if you got an animal, make sure your animal's healthy. Make sure your mortgage is paid, your house is paid for, or your next month is paid for, or your rent's covered. Make sure you got water, electricity, food on the table. Make sure that you're covering your medication if you are on it. You know, if you got some health problems, I just had 4 cavities filled in. You know, make sure that you're healthy. It's super important right now. And also make sure that you have money for the next month and even the next month after that before you even go about backing any project, because it is super important. And we don't know what's going to happen the next few months. And if you're in that circumstance and you're making sure you're good first and foremost, the best thing you can do is get on that newsletter. Get on Twitter, follow people on Twitter, follow people on Facebook pages, check out Instagram, comment on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, engage, share Kickstarter posts because it is super helpful. Share it onto your wall. It makes a difference because you don't know who's looking at your material on any of those platforms. Not to mention that if you like it, it affects the algorithms. So please go and do that if you're not backing the Kickstarter. And if you're backing the Kickstarter, please let people know that you backed the Kickstarter because you might have friends who are into indie comics. Like, oh man, so check this out. What is this about? Super important in that regard. But the most important thing that you can do ultimately is get on that email list. It makes a big difference, and you will be kept informed every month of what's going on, whether it's for issue 4, issue 5, or issue 10 down the road. You will be kept informed, and it doesn't sound like you're being all that invasive. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I hope that this piques some interest in the book. It's going to be a big story. It's going to take a while to get there, but I hope it's going to be worth the ride. And, you know, just like he said, if you want to get on there and support it, that would be great. If you want to get there and like all of my social media, that would also be very helpful. And share it. And if you want it, I can make it happen. I had somebody who asked me, they said, I want page 4 of both issues. I made a page 4 bundle just for them. So I'm here to meet your needs. So if you have read a previous issue, I have all the artwork from issues 1 through 4. So if you read a previous issue and you're dying for a specific page, let me know. The Virgin sketch covers, those came out of somebody asking me. Somebody said, oh man, that original artwork is so spectacular, but I could never afford a piece of original artwork. What could you do? I said, you know what, I'll make a cover of it. So if you ask it, I will make it. I have the collector's needs in mind, so definitely hit me up, send me a message on any of the social media, and I will do my best to accommodate what you need.
And there you go, a people pleaser. So clearly, if you like something from any of this, I'm sure it can be achieved in some capacity. So keep that in mind. And I think on that note, that's a wrap.
All right.